We will be live in 5 seconds.
Anything?
We are live now. So let's officially start it. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sajid. I'm chair of the ICC ELSA committee and your host onto the ELSA TV show. And we are privileged to have three distinguished guests onto this episode, and Dr. Sujith as well with me as a co-host in this ELSA 9th episode of the ELSA sustainability projects. Let me introduce my co-host first, and then we'll go through the detailed introduction of our guest. With me is the co-host, Dr. Wijerathne. He is adjunct professor of surgery in National University of Singapore, in National University Hospital. We worked together in NUHS before. And Dr. Sujith, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Sajid. We had a long discussion on this with Prof. Lomanto and the ELSA team. So, I mean, we wanted to bring in the sustainability. So we are planning to, actually we'll set up a sustainability committee in ELSA. So I think this is the first step of having a discussion to create awareness about sustainability. And we have three distinguished guests. Prof. Lomanto, of course, is not a guest. Maybe Prof, can I invite you to introduce Prof. Eugene and Prof. Andrea?
Sure. Thank you, Sujith, and thank you, Sajid, for organizing. Yes, as you say, I think as ELSA is the endoscopic laparoscopic surgeon of Asia Society. I think that being and seeing worldwide the trend of making hospital more sustainable, I think as a society, we don't want to really create nothing much, but we want to mainly create an awareness among all the Asians. All the Asian countries about the healthcare and the surgical community, about what is how to make our hospital, our OR more sustainable. For this, we invited two key people that they already have a great experience in that. First of all, I go by alphabetic order to avoid any mistake. I will introduce our good friend, Professor Eugene Liu. His background is anesthetist. He's still very active. He was previous head of anesthesia in the National University Hospital, but he also held a position up to the CEO of the hospital. So he has a very good insight over how hospital works and what are the mechanisms within and the workflow of the hospital. And after quite a number of years, he stepped down and now is leading the sustainability group in our NUHS group that consists of about 3 hospitals. And not only this, but he also started a lot of initiative with saving about $1 million from waste and other sources. On the other side, we have Professor Andrea Pietrabissa from Pavia. He's not originally from Pavia. He was a previous past president of the endoscopic and laparoscopic surgeon of Europe, the EAES, and also was leading the committee together with the American Society, the SAGES, about green sustainability, green OR. So he was also involved in many initiatives, still leading in many initiatives about OR green. Thank you, Sajid and Sujith.
Okay, thanks, Prof. I think, Sajid, first, shall we look into some of the definitions, because we would like to understand this. May I start with Prof. Andrea? Is that okay? Can I ask you, what do you really mean by sustainability? And what do you mean by this EESG framework? I mean, for some of the doctors, this may sound a bit confusing, or for some of us, it may be completely new. So we would like to know what these words really mean. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much. Now, in the first place, I would like to say thank you for having me with you today. It's a true privilege to share some thoughts in this international setting. This is something we really need to start talking about sustainability and surgical practice. As you mentioned, EESG might not be familiar with most surgeons, and the acronym stays for economics, environmental, social, and governance. But the underlying concept is that when we talk about sustainability, we should not refer just to the environmental problem. That's just one part of the domains that are involved by the idea of sustainability. So anytime we introduce or we change or we mitigate the sustainability of an action, there's also an involvement of the social counterpart and the economic counterpart. So we have to take into account the reflections on this activity at the same time. If we, by an example, if we reduce the use of single-use devices, there is going to be an economic effect of this action, which will be in favor or at the opposite in the other direction. At the same time, we might impact socially our patients, the distribution of goods, and also the environmental component as far as waste management process. So considering sustainability as a separate topic would be a methodological mistake. Sustainability is environment, social justice, and economics. These three components have to be considered together.
I think Sujith is a little bit connection is interrupted. So may I ask Prof, get me an opportunity to ask about the involvement of the medical profession, basically how the EESG framework and how it specifically applies to the medical institutions when we talk especially about the surgical department.
Again, hospitals are significant polluters around the world. If we would be able to cluster together every hospital in the world on Earth and make this cluster as a nation, as a new country, it would be the fourth most polluting country on Earth. So this is a paradox. The health sector is meant to prevent and treat diseases, but at the same time, it generates a significant carbon footprint. And we should be aware of this paradox. And within a hospital, the OR is by and large the most polluting environment inside the hospital. We have sort of a license to kill when it comes to carbon footprint. So even though our practice is meant to treat diseases, at the same time, we produce the conditions for diseases to grow through filling landfills and incinerating our OR waste, but also the use of anesthetics, the use of energy, and many other things that are connected with our practice in the OR. So I'm going to say this now, but I will continue to underline this concept throughout my talk. What I believe is the key factor in trying to mitigate the current situation is acknowledging the problem and triggering a cultural transformation. That is what we need. If we are aware of the problem, then we can start working together to fix it. But at the moment, a large portion of practicing surgeons and anesthetists do ignore the issue of sustainability. It is getting more popular. You know, there is more room in meetings and congresses, all these roundtables about sustainability. It's something new and it's growing, but we need a cultural transformation. That's the starting point. And hopefully today's event will contribute to the creation of this awareness.
I think it's still interrupting. Okay. Another question, Prof. Lomanto, I'm going just to let me have this opportunity to ask from you. When we're talking about the different professions, especially for the surgeons and the other professions, do you think that the carbon footprints and the we are the biggest contributor in terms of environment to give more carbon dioxide to the environment as compared to our counterpart, different professionals, like not the surgeons, but other professions like the physicians, the medical professions, my colleague respectively from the anesthesia department or from the other specialties?
That's a very quite interesting question. I was hoping that you don't ask me how healthcare compared to the other industry. So if we remain within the healthcare, I think it's much more easier. And probably I believe that both of us, surgeon and anesthetists, are probably the major contributor in this. Probably lab, chemical lab, and the other, probably the third or fourth one in the ranking. I think Eugene Professor Luda may know better because from the hospital point of view, he has more data regarding experience. But I think probably if we look at ourselves, surgeon, we create a lot of refuse. So I think probably starting from ourselves is just a big step within any hospital, within any healthcare system. And because we produce a lot of waste from our dress draping up to the finish any procedure. From the envelope of the suture to the most simple thing. There's no one surgery or many surgery, but the surgery become more technology related, and more technology come with more box and waste.
I will ask a question from Prof. Eugene, but just before that, let me ask one short question from Prof. Andrea, just very brief one. What do you think is the biggest source in terms of being a surgeon? We are contributing to the environment, and what is the biggest source which we can prevent to contribute to the sustainability?
Well, I think the largest component from us as surgeons are the disposable items, the use of disposable items. And how to fix this problem or how to mitigate this problem, it's a huge question. And to address this, I will need more time than the few seconds you gave me. But let's start with packaging, for instance. Packaging can easily be recycled. Because they are free from biocontamination, but also there's long issues pertaining to single-use items and the way we are using them today.
No, thank you. Of course, it always starts from myself. If I would say I'm going into the theater by wearing a face mask and the head cap. So my cap, I'm the leader in my hospital for the cap project, asking everyone to bring his own cap into the pocket so we can do it this way. So we are working as a team. So
let me say what you just mentioned is a drop in the ocean, right?
Exactly.
But having said that, it creates awareness. So it's important because it triggers the cultural transformation that we need. It's not significant in terms of carbon footprint, but it creates mindset.
Exactly. And I would say thank you here to Professor Lomanto as well. I received my package from Emma from ELSA when we go for the ELSA outreach program to go into the theater for the teaching and for the projects. And then now I have my own kit with my own hat and everything. So there is no need to ask everyone to give the provide and stuff. So I think that was started like 3 years ago. So my question to Prof. Eugene. Thank you, first of all, being on board. And we're working as a team together, surgeons, anesthesia, paramedical staff, and everyone. So my question is, like in an operating room, there are a lot of things in terms of the gases, in terms of as Prof. Andrea mentioned about the packaging. What do you think, without compromising the safety of the patient, how we can move forward into the operation room setup.
Well, firstly, I think thank you very much for having me on this ELSA event. It's a big honor to be able to come and share some thoughts with you on environmental sustainability. I think on your question, I think the first thing is that environmental sustainability is very aligned with patient safety. It's also very much aligned with financial sustainability, which Prof. Andrea raised just now. And preventing medical error, I think, is one of the first key steps in environment in sustainable care, because errors lead to a lot of downstream impact and much more care and recovery, and that all adds up. Yeah. So I think on that note, I'll make a pitch that things like timeout, surgical checklists, appropriate antibiotic usage, these are very, very much part of sustainable care. And if we get those right, I think that's an important first step in sustainable care. Yeah. But coming back to your problem, how can we operate? I think the first thing is to look at the operating room as a system, and where there's a focus. Yes, there's a focus on waste and single-use items, but also to look at how we use the OR itself. The energy that's involved in running the OR is huge. It's the biggest part of the hospital's energy bill. Looking at waste, Prof. Lomanto mentioned just now, but OTs in our OT in our hospital accounts for about 40% of the hospital waste, 40%. We are 5% of the floor area in the hospital, but 40% of the waste. So we generate a lot of waste every day in the OR.
That's huge.
That's huge. Yeah. So if I were to say 3 areas that we could start off with, that all hospitals could start off with to where you have a direct impact on environmental sustainability, I think the first is look at the energy and how we use it, and how we can reduce the HVAC or air conditioning systems when the operating room is not in use. There's no need to maintain the very high air change rates when the operating room is not in use. And then our hospitals which build in recirculation systems, and that enables a lot of energy savings. I think the second area relates to what Prof. Andrea mentioned. We need to reduce the waste, and we need to relook at how we use single-use items, and whether there is an opportunity to build up a circular economy in healthcare and in the OR. The third area relates to my specialty, which is anesthesia. And actually, anesthesia gases are a big part of the OR's carbon footprint. Yeah. And there is a move to, firstly, stop the worst of it, which is desflurane. Use slightly cleaner gases like sevoflurane. But even better to move towards intravenous anesthesia with propofol. And that, in fact, has maybe 1% of the carbon footprint of desflurane anesthesia. So 3 areas I think that we could work on at all hospitals to very, very quickly work on as the first steps of greening their ORs. Yeah. Back to you, Prof. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you expecting for me to say something?
No, Doctor.
Sorry.
Yeah. Dr. Sujith to ask the next segment.
Yeah. So I think we have a few areas that we would like to extend the discussion. So, and the background is maybe a little bit different in Americas, the Europe, and maybe in Asia. So maybe can I ask Prof. Andrea to describe what are the challenges that you have faced in your journey in trying to achieve a sustainability in the OR? And how did you face them? And what were the most difficult things that you faced when it comes to changing behavior of these surgeons, anesthetists, OR staff?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this crucial question. And as you pointed out, there are huge differences in terms of regulatory practice between the US, Europe, and probably Asia. And that is one fact. And we are also working and try to homogenize the regulatory topics about single-use devices. But if we look at the approach to sustainability in hospitals, I think there are basically 2 ways to go. The first one is top-down, which seems to be the case in Singapore. So the hospital executives realized that sustainability is an issue, and they decided in a top-down manner to involve practicing surgeons. So you have now a sustainable manager, who is Professor Liu, who is trying to arrange this problem at a hospital level, which is very good. It's the best way to approach the topic. But the second possibility, we are talking to practicing surgeons in places where probably there's not yet a CEO of sustainability. And so they could wait for years before something changes in their daily practice, if this will ever happen. Now, the second approach is bottom up. So I'm a practicing surgeon, maybe I'm a young resident, and I feel there is a need for a change. What can I do to make a change in my hospital, in my OR? And the answer is create your own green team. Green team is a collaborative network, spontaneous collaborative network, which is made of anesthetists, surgeons, scrub nurses, clinical engineers, whoever is willing to join. And the green team meets on a regular basis, let's say once a month or every second month, and they discuss on what can be done to make the surgical practice more sustainable in your OR, and decided to do something about switching off lights during the night, or switching off computers, or, you know, sustainable mobility of healthcare workers, or trying to collect separately the packaging of single-use devices and trying to recycle those. So the bottom-up approach is good. I mean, it's better the top-down, but if you do not have the top-down, still go for the bottom-up. That, again, creates awareness, creates engagement among the various partners of the healthcare system, from scrub nurses to surgeons.
Sujith, could I add to what Prof. Andrea just said?
Yes, Prof. I was going to ask your perspective next. Yes.
Yeah. I think you need both top-down and bottom-up. I think the top-down is so that the environmental sustainability is not left to chance. So you do need a structure that sets it on the hospital agenda as a goal for the hospital as a whole to work towards sustainability. And also you need to put some enablers in place, and that includes, say, funding, as well as a small amount of manpower to actually drive the projects in sustainability. But most important, I think, is the ground-up ideas, because it's the ground staff, the clinicians, the nurses that actually know where the waste is. They know what's actually on or not on it, what lights are on at night and not on. And they're the ones that come up with the ideas. And I would say that it's often the areas that we might not think about as part of the mainstream hospital, but actually can make a significant amount of savings. So I'll just share an example. We have all hospitals have a mortuary. But it may not be the first place you think about to say work on greening the hospital. But in fact, the mortuaries have freezers, and just by rearranging how those freezers are used, you could actually turn off the unused ones, and that could save a significant amount of energy. And this was very much a ground-up idea. It was a new staff, a very junior new staff who came in, and within 2 months said, let's try this. And just from that, he's able to save the equivalent of a few apartments' use of energy, the equivalent of that. Yeah. So I think you do need both approaches, but the idea is to have both. But I take Prof. Andrea's point that if you don't, then we still need to have the ground teams to get going within the department.
In the ideal world, you should have both. I'm with you totally, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, in many places, hospital executives do not have sustainability in their priority list. So either you do nothing, or you go the other way around, bottom up, and you create your own green team and try to engage with them in due time, which is what happened in my hospital, for instance. We didn't have any sensibility from the part of our executives. So we started with the green team, and they are now listening to us. We have twice a year an audit with the green team, and they would embrace proposals that the green teams come up with.
That's absolutely true. I think in most of the hospitals, not in this part of the world, in rest of the world as well. Like when you talk about the sustainability and all these projects, the first thing would come, of course, the patient safety. But the second thing is, what is this idea? Like the sensitivity of this thing needs to be sensitized about this thing into the future. Like what exactly that mean is, without compromising the patient safety and how we can move forward without compromising and breaking, and we have to break the chains to move forward.
Right. Can I say in the engagement with hospital executives is important to highlight the potential financial savings that comes from sustainable practice, because they're sensible to this topic. So if you let them know that lab colis can be done saving 1,000 euros for every procedure, if we think in a sustainable way how to replace sustainable with reusable instruments, they would follow. So we need to use this component of sustainability world in order to leverage on hospital executives.
Absolutely agree.
Can I just add something to what Prof. Andrea said? I think, and for those who are going to be taking this message to your executives, I think you could actually let them know that what we learned was that most sustainability measures that we put in actually save both money and carbon. So it's actually not just environmental sustainability, it actually helps your financial sustainability as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So that actually allows me to ask you the next question I wanted to ask you. So EESG, so environmental, economic. So where the social and governance comes into play within this framework, and what do you think is the most important factor? Is it change of mindset? Is that what you mean by social? Okay, governance in a broad way. Okay, is it really the executives giving us their support? Is that what you mean by governance? Can you, maybe both of you can explain on this, where the social and governance stands in this EESG framework?
Eugene.
Okay, so I think from the sustainability perspective, the S part I would look in terms of manpower and how often the having sustainable care actually also helps to reduce the burden in your staff. There might be a little bit more effort in packaging, but if we relook how we package our surgical sets, for instance, we could actually think about how to go from 6 sets for a knee replacement surgery to say 3 sets or 4 sets. And that actually also helps your staff, reduces the amount of workload. It's good for the well-being of the staff. And so I think environmental sustainability is actually also, if done correctly, also helps with manpower sustainability. I think on the governance side, I think the factor that having a structure in place, having funding in place, but also having the HR system in place to enable these changes in sustainability, where we recognize efforts from the staff and reward them if there's such a system of bonusing in your hospital. Yeah, I think that's important. But the other area I think governance is important is in procurement. So procurement is probably an area that your executives control quite closely. There will be tendering processes and criteria for procurement. So it's not just price, but quality. And I think where your governance, where your executives can make a big difference is to start requiring sustainability criteria in your procurement. So one of the things we learned was that from the UK NHS, for instance, they now have environmental criteria in their major procurements, and and this is nationwide across the UK, so they have a lot of buying power there. We're not in that advantageous situation in Singapore, certainly not in my hospital, but we're trying to do the same to send a message. And so for all our procurements above $1 million that require a tender, there are now procurement environmental criteria in procurement. So I think these are some perspectives on the ESG that can be applied specifically to environmental sustainability. Andrea?
Well, absolutely right. Just on top of what you said, there's one maybe additional factor that needs to be addressed, and that is within the social area, the concept of social justice that has to do with sustainability at large. Let's make it as an example. Let's consider robotic surgery. Is robotic surgery sustainable? Well, it depends. On a global perspective, for instance, I think it would be very little sustainable because it's not a priority. If you look at the need of global surgery worldwide, there's no place for robotics. So I'm not saying we should get rid of robotic surgery. But in considering sustainability on a global scale, one has to stick to the appropriateness of use and try to stay away from the not appropriate use of robotic surgery in this example that today seems to be a bit of a trend. We are using this technology, very expensive, very unfair to the environment, in situations and settings where conventional laparoscopic surgery would not change the outcome for our patients. So let's think about that as well. Social justice.
Yeah, Prof. Andrea, just taking your point on social justice a little bit further. Ultimately, all of us are stewards. We have to work with limited resources. There's never going to be enough time, enough manpower, enough funding to care for everybody. And our task is to direct the care to the patients who would most need it and benefit the most from the care that we provide. And so that sense of stewardship is very much a part of the sustainability and part of that social justice that you mentioned. So we want to do as much good but for as many people as possible and benefit those who would need the care the most. Yeah. But back to you. Yeah.
That's
Thanks.
true, because this comes with all the technology that today are coming in the market. And of course, if we talk academic center, there is always a need to explore and see. At the end of the day, maybe sustainability and social must be one of the criteria of evaluation of the technology too, because they require resources that are taken out from need patient for no-need patient, or so no-need procedure. So that's also a very important question when we evaluate also technology today.
Yeah, I think it's a very fruitful discussion. Can I, Sajid, may I ask one question about this social justice from Prof. Andrea? So we know airline companies when they do ticketing, okay, they can provide you the option of paying for carbon footprint, neutralize the carbon footprint. Do you see something like that coming into healthcare? I mean, they are doing this as part of their like corporate social responsibility. So do we have something similar in healthcare? I mean, have you experienced something like that coming into play? Especially the big companies, they would try to justify using all this, plastic and non-recyclable material, and they would put out in front of you, okay, you can pay for your carbon footprint. And how do we know what happens? And have you experienced this anything in healthcare?
Right. Now, companies, industry. What is the industry doing about sustainability? Of course, industry is driven by profit, and we cannot ask for something different from their side. But fortunately, also the attention to profit can be potentially good, in the sense that new generations of surgeons have more sensibility on the issue of sustainability, and they will be the customer of the years to come. So unless the big companies and the industry pay attention to a sustainable life cycle of their instruments, they might lose portion of the market. So that's why most companies do have within their organization, they have sectors dedicated to sustainability. Now, so far, this meant for them sustainable pathway of materials, sustainable delivery of materials using, green vehicles and so on, sustainable distribution, but not much taking care to the whole life cycle of single-use devices, which is the key factor. Now, within the EAES and SAGES task force on safe surgical practice, which was established now 3 years ago, and it's working very nicely, we have set a round table together with many big players in the single-use device market. And there's a very strong attention they are having on this topic. And many are now considering different ways to drive a more sustainable behavior of these companies that goes from regenerating used devices to recycling used devices, to use different type of materials within the used devices, like compostable plastics, for instance, and the packaging system, trying to make them uniform and easily recyclable. Now, there's a lack of regulations. Again, I said this before. There's a lack of regulations, and we are putting pressure on the European community at the same time to issue new regulations that will make it easier for companies not just to produce, but also to control the life cycle of every instrument and single-use device. It's a long way to go.
I think
Prof,
Sujith,
yeah.
Sujith, to add to that, I think we do have to be very careful with offsets, and there is a risk of being a victim of greenwashing. So we have to be very careful, and Prof. Andrea said it best, that companies are there to look after companies. They have to. That's their first interest. But I think societies like ELSA can drive change by setting new standards, new requirements, and surgeons and clinicians can then drive the correct procurement decisions so that we insist on greener whole life cycles of products. Yeah. So there must be the business models cannot be just based on volume, and the more that you buy, the more that they earn. It has to be changed to a more greener and more sustainable model where it might be provision of a service rather than just having a constant stream of single-use devices. So that's some thoughts for you. Yeah.
Now, when you go to a grocery store and buy a can of yogurt, there's a label that states nutritional facts, and you had the amount of sugar, the amount of carbohydrates, and whatever, right? Yeah. So in the future, we might have this kind of label on single-use devices that lets you know how much greenhouse gases is connected with the production, the distribution, and the disposal of that device. And therefore, when there is a tender and you need to buy a new system, your decision should be based on quality, cost, and carbon footprint. So we need to incorporate this element in our decision-making process. And it has to be under regulation issues by the authorities. So European Union for us and other authorities for you. This will come in due time. I'm sure it will come. And we are simply trying to facilitate the transition from where we are now to where we'll hopefully be in the future.
I think there is a very important thing. There is a couple of at least two attitudes from the big corporate, because on one side we notice that they are trying to change the packaging and try to use a simple packaging for when it's possible, because some instruments, when they travel, they ship, they require more rigid packaging. Other companies try to, in a sense, escape, or just to just say, pay for the carbon footprint. They become a big business today. There are few multinational, what they buy big piece of land in Kalimantan, in Borneo, in remote area, and they sell this about 3 hectares, 4 hectares to the big corporate to offset the carbon footprint. And this is a huge business today. Most of the people are investing in getting land, especially Indonesia, Malaysia, getting big piece of land and sell to big corporate to offset the carbon footprint. This is a shortcut towards putting themselves as a sustainable company. This is something that also we need to look after. But I believe that I think, as Eugene say and Andrea is doing, I think probably society in a small scale, I think, can create awareness and can make also the company aware that the process is changing, the things are changing, and we as a surgeon, we want to be, or an SSC, we want to be more green or more sustainable, but we want to create a more environment. I think that's also important.
That's true. That's true. I would go with the next question with again with Prof. Andrea and Prof. Lomanto. Just a common question. I would like to ask from both of you. When we talk about mostly we are talking about the operation theater, but we have at the same time the social responsibilities. We have the hospitality team working and providing the disposable items into the theater, not into the theater, into the coffee rooms, cup, mugs, and plates for our breakfast, lunch, and dinner, being like the hospitality provision. So we have the social responsibility on this act, and then at the same time, when we go into the theater, we ask for the reusable items. But at the same time, we are exactly in next 1 hour, we are using the disposable items. I've seen working into the different industries. And so what do you think that the two things are intersecting, and where we are being our responsibility being a medical professional and the social responsibility to control and suggest for the future?
It's a tricky question. You know, I'm an old guy, and I was born in a world that did not know disposable items at all.
So do I.
No, I mean you are young,
but still, I was born in there's no concept of the.
but
as Prof said, back in Pakistan, everything is like a reusable.
So I mean, when I was a junior surgeon, 1984, in my hospital, everything was reusable, including stitches and threads for suture. We had, you know, steel needles, reusable steel needles, and threads to be mounted on each needle. And masks and gowns were made of linen, and everything, including urinary catheter and chest tubes. They were reusable, made of rubber. And there was a nun at the end of the day who will collect all these used devices and clean them and sterilize them in the autoclave for the next day. So that was the world I grew up in. And then all of a sudden, in the late 80s or early 90s, thanks to minimal invasive surgery, everything changed. And in a matter of 10 years, everything was disposable, from gowns and caps and masks to gloves, everything. And we didn't pay attention at all to the environmental issue. We were just pleased by this dramatic change because we'll make our life a bit easier. It's so easy to throw away things and goods after use instead of having to take care of recycling those products. So, and today we finally realize that it's not good, and we need to rethink our practice and our profession. Now, I'm not Greta Thunberg, okay? I don't want the world to change tomorrow. This is not possible. This is not right. What I would like to stress is that the magic word today is mitigate. Mitigate. We do not need to change. We need to mitigate. So rethink our processes, everything, including our private life, as you said, and our public life and our jobs. But think twice before you do something and consider the sustainable aspect of it. Can I drive my bicycle to the hospital instead of taking the car? Yes, I can. So whenever it's possible, I take my bike. Can I avoid coming to Singapore and use Zoom platform? Oh, yes, we save a lot of greenhouse gases by having this conversation on a fantastic platform like today. So I think I went through a cultural transformation, and I'm trying to mitigate the impact of my profession in my daily life, both as a individual and as a surgeon. And we need to grow the new generation of surgeons in this idea of respect for the environment and for future generations. That's the topic. It's a cultural transformation. But don't be too rude, because otherwise you ended up being labeled as the surgical Greta Thunberg, which is not good for what we are trying to do today. We are not fanatics, okay? I still using a lot of disposable items and robotic surgery, but I know I'm creating problems to the environment. So I try to mitigate step by step, very slowly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure, it's not something that we can change by today, but because unfortunately we need to keep safety, we need to provide care, we need to keep the standard of care. So I think that all are factors that need to be taken into account.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just a quick question, Prof. Eugene. What do you think, what strategies ensures the healthcare workforce is included and empowered in the sustainability initiatives? What shall we do? What strategies should be taken?
Yeah. I think we do need to plan for it and not leave it to chance. I think that's the first thing. And I think having a structure of how to have the new staff joining or being taught what the hospital is doing in environmental sustainability. But as important also is having the heads of departments serving as role models. So we not only have a role as a steward, but we also have a role, have a duty to be a role model to show sustainability, that we think about sustainability in our care. Yeah. I think one of the lessons we learned was that every change takes a huge amount of engagement and education. I think you cannot underestimate the amount of work that's needed to talk to staff, often one-to-one, to drive change. So say reducing desflurane usage or reducing nitrous oxide usage. We do need a little bit of patience there. And I really take Prof. Andrea's point about not being the surgical Greta Thunberg, because we do not want to give sustainability a bad name in the hospital. Okay? We have to moderate it. There are clinical realities that we work within, but our role is to be prepared to rethink how we do things and where possible to mitigate. But there'll be certain things that we cannot, and then we have to be reasonable about it. Yeah. But I think communication has to be planned, and I think it should be tiered for junior staff as well as for heads of department, and also for the C-suite level.
Yeah. Okay. Dr.
Back to
Sujith?
you, Sajid. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Sujith?
Yeah, so does that mean governance is the most important thing in making the change?
I think governance is crucial. I think the first thing is for the board and the senior management to support this, and importantly, make it a requirement as part of the management of the hospital and also the management of priorities of the hospital. So, for instance, having an environmental target for the hospital, I think it's one of the key steps in governance. But governance also involves putting in place enablers. So education was one that Sajid raised just now. But the other big important enabler actually is data. And so getting the right data to the right people who can make those decisions, who can be the role models, is as important. So finding the right heads who are prepared to drive change, who understand the need for it, and then to drive it, you do need to support them with the right data as well. The carbon in the processes, in the care plans, and also in the products that they use. Yeah. But governance is important. Right. And with governance actually comes resourcing. So that means we do need some funding and we do need some manpower to drive this. So it does need some protected time for the people working on this. I know everyone's busy, but it cannot be left to chance. I think that's the role of governance. And you do need some funding, but I think to convince your CFOs in your hospitals, most sustainability measures that we've implemented in NUH actually save money for the hospital. They save both carbon and money. Back to you, Sujith. Yeah.
Thanks, Prof. So ELSA actually, in a way, we are concentrating more on minimally invasive techniques and procedures. And it's the main society in Asia that is for endoscopic surgery or minimally invasive surgery procedures. So in both of your opinion, what would you think the very first step for places? ELSA governs basically from Mongolia down to Turkey and then down to Southeast Asia, Japan. So countries like Japan, yes, of course, they would have thought about it, and I'm sure they have sustainability committees and all that. But I'm not very sure places in, I don't know, some part of Indonesia who have never even thought of this. So what would you suggest these places, where do they start, you think? And how do you think ELSA can influence this, especially with digital platforms like this?
Perhaps I can make a suggestion. I think ELSA would have a key role for advocacy in this. I think surgeons generally listen to other surgeons, and doctors listen to other doctors. And so I think getting it on the society agendas, and I think I'm guessing working with the perhaps the Indonesian Medical Association or the Surgical Association in those countries would be a key step that ELSA could do, and to try to get the sustainability on their agenda. So say for their annual conferences, for their continuous medical education events. I think that would be a key step. I think the second thing that I think ELSA could help with this, especially with the countries that are perhaps not as advanced as Japan in this, is that you could set reasonable standards and reasonable requirements that countries which are on the lower end of the economic scale could also achieve sustainable practices. Yeah, so these have to be reasonable and tailored for that country's situation. So I think ELSA would have a key role in this, because you represent a wide range of countries. Yeah.
Let me say something. Because I do a lot of traveling in mostly the developing countries. At the end of the day, if you look at them, they are the most sustainable one. Why? Because we use a lot of clip, and they do a lot of suturing. So they save a lot of money. They don't have paper cap, but they always still use drape. Okay, on the other side, safety is questionable. But if you look at those countries, probably we can also learn from them and push more the surgeon from, for example, I say Japan, where they use more disposable to use less disposable, more reusable. So on this, of course, those people also recycle instruments that are more single use, and the sterilization is not there appropriate. So there is a lot of issue. But there are a lot of things that actually in a developing country can be adopted or can make an example to be also more sustainable. So for example, myself and Sujith knew we use much less clip because we use more suturing. That is enhance your skill, but also reduce the use of plastic, for example, small things. Andrea, would you say something?
Yeah. Just one suggestion.
Yeah.
Now, sustainability is a global challenge, and there's no special address from US, from Europe or Asia that will different. So a global challenge demands a global response, united the community of surgeons. So my suggestion is why ELSA does not join the existing task force of SAGES and the EAES on this topic, and let's perhaps change the name and call this global task force on sustainability surgical practice. They have been working now for 3 years in a very good way, producing a few papers, and very close to be able to issue recommendation and guidelines for practicing surgeons that can be picked up by everybody on Earth. Because again, it's the same problem. It's like, fighting COVID-19 it doesn't make sense to have an Italian committee against COVID-19. Vaccination was produced and made available worldwide. And to some extent, sustainability is the same category of problem, global challenge.
No, thank you so much, Prof. I think now we are approaching to the end of the session as well for the due to the time constriction. I would like to thank you all, but before that, I would like to take the final suggestions from all three of you, from our speakers, from distinguished guests. A take-home message. You have given a very good suggestions in terms of the collaborations between these main continents like in Asia, Europe, and the USA to collaborate and move forward to give a better platform to the younger surgeons, to the younger physicians to follow the footprints of the seniors. I would start with the Prof. Lomanto. What would be your a message to the audience who are listening live at this moment on this TV show to start thinking, as we said, about the not fully saying like finalizing or moving towards it, but how we can mitigate. What suggestion would you give to the audience to incorporate the practice into their practice?
As I say, as Andrea said, we don't want to be like Greta. I think I follow Confucius, small step to have a big leap. So in a sense, we need to start ourselves with a small step and be an example for other people that will follow. I think this is a very important. We cannot think to do a big huge project, because we are going to fail because the resources are enormous and there are a lot of bias and factor that may influence it. But I think starting small, I think is probably in line with what Eugene and Andrea say. Start a small project in your own environment, whatever it is, big or small hospital, private hospital, and I think probably is the only way to succeed and to contribute with a small drop in the ocean.
I agree. Yes, Prof. Eugene, would like to have your closing remarks onto this subject. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think we all need to recognize that we have a duty of care for patients, but also for our planet. And that looking after our planet is a way of looking after the patients of the future. I think the other message I would leave is that green care is good care. It's not inferior care. It is good care. And that we must be prepared to rethink how we do things, and that it cannot be business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No,
thank you for inviting me to be on this show today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And Prof. Andrea, from you as well, your suggestions and the closing remarks before we go off, please.
Well, as a closing remark, I need to apologize with Greta Thunberg because what I said does not reflect my thinking on a beautiful young lady who did more for the earth than I would be able in my whole life to do. So honestly, I think we gave a wrong picture about her. So very sorry, Greta. I love you.
There is a question before going off from one of the audience. What have most countries practicing sustainability do in regards to SUD? Any example for that in sustainability projects? What have most countries practicing sustainability in regards to sustainability project, I believe? Any example?
But I think the Netherlands and New Zealand are two countries that would score top in terms of sustainable surgical practice for various reasons. But in Europe, the Netherlands, the Dutch surgeons are moving ahead much faster than we do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Would like to say a vote of thanks by Professor David Lomanto to both of speaker, and then we can conclude.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a big step about advocacy and awareness. I think ELSA will continue, and we'll be happy to contribute, Andrea, to any initiative and be part of the EAES agency. We always work together. we are very keen to dedicate time to this one, and because of course to reproduce and replicate things that are already done, this is no word, because I think it's more important to focus on project than on the guideline. And I need to, of course, thanks also Professor Eugene Liu as an example in our hospital. I think I was amazed when he shared the data. I was impressed. As a surgeon in NUHS, I was not really aware of exactly what's going on. And I think they are doing a fantastic job. Andrea, I think you understand also the approach that they use, and is very important. And if you look at the number, actually didn't present the number, but the number in terms of financial savings are impressive. But I talk about millions of dollars. And of course, our CFO, I think, is very, very happy, and we will keep him as a chief of sustainability for the next 20 years. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sajid. Thank you, Sujith, for organizing such event. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. We'll see you again in the next episode.
Thank
you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.